Here we go. So this is Jotary. Things what I have wrote and why I wrote them. I first started writing probably about 20 years ago. That's not actually true, because I wrote for long before I was 30. I started writing when I was about 4 or 5, but I mean like writing stuff that people maybe want to read. So in this podcast series, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look back at some of my written work. I'm going to talk about the instance that inspired me to write. Perhaps it's a sign of getting older when we start to reminisce, but hopefully you will enjoy my journey in time and come with me as we revisit those moments that I have captured into words which until now really haven't been shared outside of a very small number of close personal friends. Each episode I'm going to look at a moment in time, share with you the words that were inspired by it. And we've a range of moments to revisit. We're starting off in a creative writing workshop in Derry, Londonderry. We're going to look at parenting maybe, day trips to Sligo, walks in the forest. And if you're lucky, you might even get a tale about how you can use a can of Coke to break up a fight. But you'll have to wait to see if you go down that rabbit hole. But for now, we're going to have a go with our first one, so hopefully you'll join me as we take a look at things that I have wrote and why I wrote them. So, hello everyone again. Welcome to the first episode in our podcast series. For this episode, we're going to take a trip back to 2017, and we're going to go to a creative writing workshop in our maiden city here in Northern Ireland, Derry, Londonderry. I work in the Hollywell Trust, and there's a very wonderful man there by the name of Eamon Baker. He's actually a Dr. Eamon Baker now. One of this planet's true gentlemen, in my opinion. I know he'll be listening to this, so hello Eamon. Eamon had organised a creative writing workshop, and he knew that I had an interest in writing, and he invited me to attend it, which I did along with my daughter. We looked at different aspects and form and function of poetry and whatever, all of which was a bit boring for me. I tended to just be more a man of just let me write. But anyway, we were given a random selection of words to pick out of a hat, and they were supposed to be the theme for your poem. I ended up, I think partly through choice and partly through accident, I ended up with 3 words: delicious, raindrops, and racism. Not your first choice if you're going to write a poem, but me being a bit of a rebel and a bit of a sort of an agitator, I thought I could do something with that. So there I was sitting in a workshop with about half a dozen other people who were, some of them published poets and well-established poets in the local scene, and there was me who really hadn't written anything much, but I thought I'll give this a go. So that's what I did. I sat and I looked at the words and I decided that I would write this piece. I wrote it from the point of view of someone who is a racist, basically. I think that it's important to see the world through different eyes and to not just immediately discount everyone as being, just because their point of view is different than yours, that is unacceptable. Racism is unacceptable in any form, but we have to at least almost allow people to have that choice, and then when they're better informed, hopefully that will change. So I'm going to read you the poem, Delicious Raindrops of Racism, and afterwards I'm going to read you a second part, because I felt that when I'd finished the piece, it sounded well, it read well, but it was very one-sided, and I felt it needed a reply. You know, we can all listen to racist rhetoric, and we need to have the balls to reply. We need to challenge what we hear. A wise man once said, "It only takes good men to do nothing for bad men to succeed." So I wrote a second part. and I will read it immediately after the first. So I'm going to give you the piece now. Hopefully you appreciate it for what it is, and please enjoy Delicious Raindrops of Racism. Your lives do not matter to me. When I look at you, it's not human I see. I do not care how you suffered just to exist. You reach out with your hand, I'll reply with my fist. See, battered and bloodied, I will beat you down, just so you learn to stay on your own side of town. I stand strong for my country. It's the land of the free, and I hark back to the days of the old hanging tree. I pray the tears from your eyes, they never will stop. They sustain my existence. They are delicious raindrops. You say you don't see me as human. Well, I disagree, because really, after all, aren't you just like me? Okay, maybe different in our skin tone, but underneath that, same flesh, same bone. According to you, I belong on the end of a rope, yet the human in me will hold on to the hope that the tears that you say you want to fall from my eyes will cleanse you of your hatred and maybe open your eyes. You see, I too believe in the land of the free, though it's freedom for all, for that is the key. No one treated less than the other, for purely as humans, we are sister and brother. So come stand beside me, and be in no doubt. Forget about those raindrops. It's time for a drought. There you have the delicious raindrops of racism, and the response, time for the drought. Hopefully you will see that the first part of the poem is not stands on its own, that it required the response. And as I said, we have a moral responsibility to respond to negative activities and negative statements when we hear them. I suppose, going back to when the poem was written, 2017, we were in the first year of Donald Trump's presidency in the US. There was a rise in racial tensions across the world. We saw an increase in alt-right activity and an apparent acceptance that that type of ideology is now normal and nothing really to be hidden. I suppose for the first part of the poem, I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to put myself into the mindset of someone who would hold such beliefs. I suppose as a good writer, that it's important that you're able to do that. But on completion of the first part, and it took 2-3 days before I wrote the second part, but it did require a response. And as I said earlier, it is important to challenge and accept that you have a right to challenge and put your point of view across whenever you hear or witness activities that you may feel aggrieved against. Even here in Northern Ireland, we have had our share of differing opinions and strongly held beliefs, and I think now we can see that it's about accepting that others have a right to their belief, as I have a right to mine. That doesn't take away from my morals and values are not diminished in any shape or form because of ones that are held by others. Hopefully the second part answered the many, many questions in the first. And as I said, I hope and pray that the two pieces together work well. They are balanced. They are the yin and the yang and the black and the white and the different contrasts that this world places. So, as I said, hopefully I've explained my reasons why it was written, and I hope that you have enjoyed it. At the end of that workshop, there was another piece of writing done, and I just wanted to put this one in here. It was written as we had to write about a immaterial object, something that didn't exist in physical form, and we didn't tell the other participants in the class what our topic was, and then they had to try and guess what it was. That won't work in this format here because I can't get your responses, so I don't hear from you. So I will tell you what the format or what the context of the poem was. How do you value something like for some who are willing to fight and to die so that they could make use of the choices I gave and help move away from the bondage of master and slave? And yet now I am considered by many as futile, an exercise pointless and barely worthwhile, because I have lost my ability to make change, they say, and I go unboxed and unused on my allocated day. So unless I get used, nothing can ever change. It's time for your point of view to get rearranged. No longer should you live your lives as sheeple. It's time to stand up. Use me. Power to the people. So yes, so that piece was written and the other participants had to try and guess what it was. But as I said, unfortunately you cannot tell me if you got it or not, but hopefully now you've heard it, I will tell you. It was entitled The Vote. So it was. So it was about how we seem to have lost our will to use the ballot box to make change, and maybe it's an indication of our lack of faith in our political system, where we feel now that it's sometimes better not to vote because our choices are limited, and it seems to be that the outcome is the same no matter what choice we make. So yes, there's the poems that were written that day back in 2017, some 3 years ago now at the time of this podcast, but also very relevant to recent times. We've had the recent Black Lives Matter campaign highlighting the injustice felt by some people who live in America, highlighting the fact that there is institutionalized racism that has all of a sudden become acceptable and strangely normal for many people. We had the recent election for the new president of the United States. At the time of this podcast being recorded, I don't think we have yet the official confirmation of the winner of that election. It is being contested by the sitting president, Donald Trump. So in many ways those poems were connected at the time, and have stayed connected through time, and are every bit as relevant today as they were when I wrote them 3 years ago. But my hope is that you've enjoyed this podcast. My hope is that you will join me once again, and who knows where I'll take you next time. I haven't yet decided on what particular moment in time that we will travel to. Maybe I need to get my flux capacitor sorted out, or maybe I need to ask my good friend the doctor for the length of the TARDIS. It's difficult travelling in time. It's difficult going back to some of these times, but it's enjoyable. They were moments that were important at the time. I tend to only write and be inspired to write when I am emotionally connected to an event or a moment. So everything that I will read to you over the coming few episodes have very deep and personal connection to me, and I hope that you will enjoy and appreciate them for what they are. I do not claim to be a poet laureate, but I do enjoy writing, I hope that you enjoy listening, and I am looking forward to sharing what has been for me up until now very personal thoughts, and I sincerely look forward to sharing those with you, and possibly then through time I may set up a means that you can let me know your thoughts on what I have presented to you. So take care, and I will catch you the next time.